Good morning, teachers. Welcome to day one of our training session for the module Curriculum Models in Early Childhood Education. I am Dr.Castillon and I will be your trainer for this module. For today's video, we're going to talk about Module 1 for the module in Curriculum Models. And particularly for this day, we're going to talk or discuss about Module 1, Lesson 1. Now, Module 1, which is entitled Developmentally Appropriate and Child-Centered Curriculum, has only one lesson. And today, we're going to talk about this lesson. So let's proceed first with the module overview for Module 1, which is again entitled Developmentally Appropriate and Child-Centered Curriculum. As an early childhood educator, because you are early childhood educator, since you are teaching children within the range of 0 to 8 years old as child development workers and child development teachers, you need to be cognizant or aware of the important role that you specifically play in terms of planning developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum for very young children or learners. Now, Module 1 in particular has only one lesson, and this lesson highlights the core components and principles of preparing developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum. So, Lesson 1 is called Developmentally Appropriate and Child-Centered Curriculum. For this lesson, we will have 3 specific learning outcomes or 3 SLOs, and these are the things or the tasks that you need to accomplish after finishing this lesson video. So first SLO is describe a developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum. So you have to describe what it is after this lesson. Second SLO, discuss the 3 core components of developmentally appropriate practice, or we call it DAP. So for this lesson, you're going to learn about what are these 3 core components that make developmentally appropriate practice, or DAP. And the last SLO is explain. You should be able to explain the principles in planning developmentally appropriate curriculum. So at the end of this lesson, you need to do these 3 specific learning outcomes so that we will also know if you really understood this lesson. Okay, first part for this lesson is we're going to have the first A, and that is activate. So you're going to do this first activity in your printed module. The instruction for this activity is describe a developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum by making a word splash. So what is a word splash? A word splash is a collection of words, terms, concepts, which describes a given topic. So for this activity, you need to make a word splash composed of 15 words that describes a developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum. So the given topic is developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum. Now you're going to make a word splash composed of 15 words that describe developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum. So I have given here a sample of a word splash, and this word splash is about the ecosystem. So as you can see here, there is the main topic, which is the ecosystem, and all these words are words that describe the ecosystem. So again, for this activity, for the activate portion of this module or this lesson, you're going to make a word splash, particularly composing of 15 words that describe a child-centered or developmentally appropriate curriculum. So think of words, terms, or concepts that will describe what a developmentally appropriate or child-centered curriculum is. And then you're going to put those words or terms or concepts here surrounding the given topic, which is developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum. So it's up to you now how you're going to design your word splash. It's up to you if you're going to color it or make specific drawings that represent these words, these 15 words that you have chosen, or whatsoever. It all depends on you. Okay, let's proceed to the second A, and that is acquire. And this portion is the input part of the lesson. Before we proceed to the discussion, let me read first a statement from Dr. Maria Montessori, one of the famous advocates of early childhood curriculum or early childhood education and the proponent of the Montessori curriculum. She said, as soon as children find something that interests them, they lose their instability and learn to concentrate. And that is why it is very important as early childhood educators to really be able to plan a developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum so that children will be given or will be exposed to a lot of activities that will make them think, concentrate, and eventually learn. Alright, so let's start the discussion by defining what a child or what a developmentally appropriate or child-centered curriculum is. So it has been defined by Claudia Eliasson that a curriculum is everything that is happening in school or child care. And when we say developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum, this refers to planning and executing a curriculum based on what learners are able to do cognitively, physically, and emotionally at a specific age. So because there are a lot of individual differences, we know that because Howard Gardner proposed the types of intelligences, so we cannot really say that children develop at the same time and at the same pace. So it is really an accepted fact that children do not develop at the same rate. They are unique. Each of your learner in the class is unique. So this means to say that children have a range of abilities that are considered developmentally appropriate for each age in the various developmental domains. Now, DAP, or the developmentally appropriate practice, encompasses both continuity and change. When we say continuity, this means to say that it guides a tradition of ensuring quality in early learning, and change as it integrates new research and knowledge about children's development and learning. So this means to say that your practices as child development teachers and child development workers as early childhood educators need to be consistent or aligned with contemporary and effective approaches or strategies in development and learning. This can be described as best or quality practices, thoughtful teaching, or developmentally appropriate practices, or DAP. When we use teaching strategies in making children or helping children learn, we shouldn't just try to experiment out of nothing. So it is very important for us as early childhood educators to be well informed on developmentally appropriate practices and strategies so that whatever it is that we will be doing with our learners will really be helpful to them. So the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or the NADEK, states that DAP is informed by what we know from theory and literature about how children develop and learn. In its position statement about DAP, NADEK shares the following in defining DAP. Number one, DAP needs both meeting where children are, which means that we must get to know them well and enable them to reach goals that are both challenging and achievable. That is very important. So as early childhood educators, we need to understand the present knowledge, the present skills and capacities of our learners. We have to understand them. We have to get to know them because it is by knowing them well, where they are currently as a learner, that we are able to plan for activities or curriculum that is very appropriate to their existing skills, abilities, and knowledge. Second, all teaching practices should be appropriate to children's age and developmental status and responsive to the social and cultural context in which they live. So as teachers, it's very important for us to make sure that our teaching practices are suitable to the children's age, their developmental status, and of course, the environment they live in. Third, DAP does not mean making things easier for children. So it doesn't mean that we are trying to make things easy for kids or for children. But it means that we have to ensure that goals and experiences match their learning and development and making these experiences challenging enough to promote their progress and interest. As child development teachers or child development workers, since you are handling very young children, we need to strike a balance between making the activities challenging and at the same time ensuring that these activities are fun for young children. So it's not just about targeting that these activities should be challenging, but children will not enjoy this activity. So we cannot do that. We have to be creative and try to consider that these activities that we are preparing and we are asking them to do are also fun-filled and at the same time full of learning opportunities. And fourth is, best practice is grounded on knowledge instead of assumptions and how children learn and develop. And you have to remember that. When we say best practice, it's not just rooted or based on trial and error practices. Because remember, you are dealing with very sensitive young children. Whatever it is that you will do and you will ask them to do will definitely have an impact on their learning and their overall development. So when we deal with young children, it's important not to rely on our assumptions. We have to also consider correct or appropriate knowledge on how children really learn, no? Hindi ka pwede mag-buot-buot because, again, we are dealing with young children who are specifically in their foundational stage, no? All right, so let's proceed. DAP, or Developmentally Appropriate Practices, focuses on 5 key areas in early learning practices. And what are these 5? First is creating a caring community of learners. So this is very important because when dealing with young children, we have to bear in mind that it is important that we cultivate positive and responsive relationships between children, no? Among children themselves, to staff as well, and the families, including also groups within the program, so that we will be able to create a community, a group that supports all children as they develop and learn to their capacity in all domains. Okay? Because when we want children to succeed, to progress, this means to say that a lot of people, significant people, should be involved. Teachers alone cannot do this task. no? And parents also cannot do this task alone. That's why number 1 means that we need to form a strong relationship between and among people so that we can all support the learning and development of children. So it's a matter of teamwork and responsibility, helping each other, contributing something to help children learn, develop, and succeed. Because each of us have something to give, have something to share for children to be successful. There's no such thing as one person, only one group of people who can provide everything that the child needs. So kinahanglan yun magtinabanga ang school, ang panimalay sa bata, ang community where the child is in. Second is teaching to enhance development and learning. So what does this mean? Rather, as teachers, you have to provide a balance, a balance of teacher-directed and child-initiated activities and plan experiences that meet individual needs, interests, and learning goals. So we need to avoid only focusing on teacher-directed activities. We also need to plan for learning experiences which are initiated by children themselves. But of course, you also have to make sure that these activities are safe for them to engage in. So dili sa tanang panahon kita magbuot sa unsay buhaton sa atong mga learners in the class. As a teacher, we need to prepare the environment, the materials in it. We need to provide children with options, so that they can also in a way practice their decision-making skills, For example, in a day, you will set up 5 different activities in the class. So at some time, you also need to let them choose what they want to do for a certain span of time. And then later on, you can do the teacher-directed activities. All right, so number 3, planning curriculum to achieve important goals. So this means that teachers need to develop a written curriculum that reflects developmental milestones and appropriate early learning goals for children and that supports individualized learning. It's very important to cultivate in children cognitive development, physical development, social development, emotional development, spiritual development, static development, and many more. So number 3 is telling you as teachers of young children that when we plan for curriculum, it's very important for us to be holistic. We need to target various learning domains and development. Let's not just focus only on 1 or 2 development or domains. Common malpractice of few, not all, teachers is that they focus more on cognitive development, It's important to cultivate cognitive development, but let's not also forget that there are also equally other important learning domains that should be cultivated at an early age, particularly in the early childhood stage, kasagaran gusto man gyud nato nga ma-bright ang bata, makabasa ang bata, will be able to count and do other academic tasks. But as teachers, we really need to target holistic development. Kailangan buo ang development ng bata, hindi lang dito sa talino lang. Kailangan na your activities will be holistic in nature, and when we say holistic, it targets cognitive, physical development, emotional, social, spiritual, static development. So when you plan for curriculum, set sometimes for these activities to be integrated. Huwag puro cognitive development lang. Paano naman yung mga values and character formation? Paano naman yung mga fine and gross motor skills? How about mingling and working with friends or peers? So they really need to have opportunities to collaborate with other people, and that will really support their social development. Number 4, assessing children's development and learning. It is necessary to link assessment to curriculum and early learning standards and use authentic assessment methods to measure a child's progress. Now, when we say assessing children's development and learning, it's very important for teachers to have a wide repertoire of assessment tools. That is why one of your modules in this whole training session for the extension Empowering Child Development Workers, Classroom Management, and Pedagogy is about assessing the behaviors of young children using the various tools, no? So as teachers, you need to use several assessment tools like checklists, rating scales, anecdotal records, time sample, event sample, portfolio, maybe performance-based assessment, output-based assessment, so that you will have a full picture of how each learner in your class is developing and learning. So we cannot only use one type of assessment, or else your data will be insufficient, inadequate, no? Hindi sapat. So as teachers, you need to use various assessment tools because the data that you will be getting from these assessment tools will also be used as your basis to plan the curriculum and learning experiences of your learners. So say for example, in your checklist, you found out that a certain learner in your class cannot yet trace properly broken lines of different strokes. So that is on fine motor development, particularly on writing. So dahil nalaman mo na di pa pala kaya ng bata gawin ang ganong klaseng activity, gumawa ka ng activity, ng learning experiences para yung bata ma-practice niya ang activity or yung skill na to. So, you have to remember, teachers, that whatever it is that you will find or discover out of using various assessment tools, dapat gamitin natin yan as basis for planning curricular experiences for children to learn and develop and improve. Di pwede hanggang assessment lang, tapos wala na. Di pwede yan. No? It's very important to make use of this data, the data that you are getting from the different types of assessment tools, to plan for something to help the child some more. No? All right. And the 5th is establishing reciprocal relationships with families. One important ingredient for children's success is the teamwork, relationship, partnership between the home and the school. No? Earlier, I said that the success of a child is not just attributed to one person or one group of people. It is a group effort, a collaborative effort of various people, groups, individuals, and organizations. So, as teachers, you need to communicate with the parents or guardians or families of your learners. You have to let them understand why there's a need for you to communicate and help each other. Because we know that there's no parent or guardian who doesn't want the child not to succeed, right? To succeed. No, wala naman sigurong parents na ayaw mag-succeed ang kanilang mga anak. So, as teachers, you need to communicate regularly with the parents or guardians or families of your learners. You have to make them understand why two-way communication is essential. You have also to communicate so that whatever it is that you are doing at school will be supported by the parents or guardians or families at home. Di naman pwedeng ganito ang bata sa school tapos sa bahay iba na siya. There should be consistency. And for this consistency to be really practiced, the teachers and the parents or guardians or families should agree on what they need to do. Overall, developmentally appropriate practice should be your basis, should be the teacher's basis for making good. Remember, only good decisions to help children. So when early childhood educators plan for developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum, they always seek out best opportunities for learners that, of course, support their healthy development of their whole being. Holistic development, not just one or two. Let's proceed to the 3 core components of developmentally appropriate practice. First is child development appropriateness. What does this mean? Be cognizant about milestones across domains and use knowledge of these in planning learners' activities, environments, and strategies to promote optimum learning and development. When you say milestones at a specific age or particular age, say for example, age 4, there are already a set of skills or competencies that a 4-year-old child is expected to be able to do. These are what we call milestones. So for example, for physical development, particularly fine and gross motor development, there are already specific milestones or set of skills and competencies that a 4-year-old, or let's just say 5-year-old, is expected to do. Same is true with cognitive, social emotional development, and so on and so forth. So you need to check the developmental milestones so that you can also assess if your learner, who is for example 4-year-old, can already do the following skills and competencies as reflected in a particular domain of development. Kasi pag hindi niya nagawa o hindi mo nakita na nagawa niya itong mga activities or set of skills and competencies na to, ay as a teacher, you can do something, no? To check if the child can really do these skills or not. And should you find that the child cannot yet do these expected competencies of a 4-year-old child, then as a teacher, you can do something about it. You can help the child. Second is individual appropriateness. What does this mean? Each learner's development is unique. You know that. You cannot compare two learners because of the principle of individual differences. So determine children's skills, abilities, needs, interests, strengths, and ways of learning. And how to do that? You have to conduct observation, assessment. You also have to explore the work samples of your children, of your learners. You also have to check the documentation that you did in the class. You also need to inform or ask information from families or the previous teachers of the child. And time spent with the child could be valuable sources in getting to know the child more. So going back to the concept that helping the child succeed is not a single effort. It's a collaborative effort. So you really need to ask from significant people, the significant people of the child's life, like the parents, the family members, the previous teachers, and all other else. The third is social and cultural appropriateness. All learners belong to various cultures. You know that. It's important to be aware of their family and cultural backgrounds. For what reasons? Because this would allow teachers to understand more the learner's family, values, language, beliefs, and lifestyles. And by understanding all this, teachers will be able to provide experiences that respect these while fostering overall development and learning. And the last for this lesson will be the 12 principles in planning developmentally appropriate curriculum. Let's just run through this. First is all the domains of development are important. Earlier, I mentioned that you shouldn't only focus on the cognitive development of your learners. You also need to give equal attention, equal emphasis to other domains of development like physical development, social development, emotional development, static development, and many more. Second, many aspects of children's learning and development follow well-documented sequences. Like, for example, you cannot expect a child to write his or her name legibly without learning how to trace broken lines or trace certain strokes. So there are really sequences. And we have to follow simple to complex sequence. We cannot ask children to do something challenging or difficult without even trying to provide the child with practice steps to help him or her do this certain major challenging task. Number 3, development and learning proceed at varying rates from child to child. This means to say that each child, each learner in your class is unique. You cannot say that, oh, what's happening to this child? This another child is already doing this and that, but this one is unable to do this and that. You shouldn't do that. Never compare, because children do not develop at the same time and pace and rate. Number 4, development and learning result from a dynamic and continuous interaction of biological maturation and experience. So it's a combination of nature and nurture. Nature, hereditary influences, and the nurture, the environmental influences that the child is being exposed to. Fifth, early experiences have profound effects on a child's development and learning, and there are optimal times for certain learning and development to occur. That is why early childhood is very important, because early childhood is the foundation stage. 6, development proceeds toward greater complexity, regulation, and representational abilities. So again, this goes to say that children should be exposed first with activities from simple to complex. Do not ask children to do challenging tasks right away without exposing them to simple and then average, moderate, and then going to challenging tasks. 7th, Seventh is children develop best when they have secure, consistent relationships with responsive caregivers and peers. This means to say that the support that the children will get from his or her environment, coming from teachers, parents, and family members, will really help the child to learn and develop. And then 8, development and learning occur within and are influenced by social and cultural context. Of course, the people that the child is exposed to, the activities that the child is doing in school and at home, or even in the community with friends and peers will really have an effect on the child. That is why it's very important to have supervision to children's activities, because they might be doing something unpleasant and this will affect their learning and development. Ninth is children learn in a variety of ways and are actively engaged in learning. So we have to consider the learning styles of children, and this goes to support also the idea that children are unique, and so they have different ways to learn, and as a teacher it is our task to expose them to a lot of opportunities and learning experiences that will help them reach their full potential. 10th is play is a main way that children learn and develop self-regulation. Remember that play is not just play. For young children, this is a very strong channel or medium for them to learn a lot about the world. So make use of play-based activities to teach them concepts and help them learn and develop skills. 11. Development and learning occur when children are slightly challenged and through practice. Okay. This means to say that you need to increase complexity of activities when you see the children are progressing. So if you can see that children are already progressing at a certain level, you also need to level up the activities that you are providing them. Di pwede na pare-pareho lang, or else you will not be able to fully unleash the potential of the child. So first, you may start giving the child with this simple activity, and then if the child succeeds in doing this activity, then provide another activity that will challenge his or her creativity or thinking skills. And if the child succeeds, provide some more, and the complexity and level of difficulty increases. And by that way, the child will be challenged, but in a good way. And the last principle is children's dispositions and behavior are shaped by experiences and affect children's learning and development. That is why the support coming from the significant people surrounding the child is really an important factor. And in early childhood, the relationships, the support that they get from the teachers, the family members and relatives, even from community members and other people that the child is exposed to, should really be considered, because this is very important to children, especially that they are growing and developing during these sensitive periods or phase of development. Okay, that's it for our discussion, and let's proceed to assess. And this part is your opportunity to show what you have understood from the lesson, and the assess part targets the 3 specific learning outcomes that I have presented earlier. For activity 1, the instruction here is you need to fill in the bubble map with your sample activities and strategies which support developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum practices. You need to identify what activities you have been doing that support developmentally appropriate and child-centered curriculum, and you're going to put these activities inside the circles. Activity 2, let's do something fun and creative. You need to discuss the 3 core components of DAP through a short song composition. Remember, it's only a short song composition. The song must be in English and composed of 4. Remember, you need to follow instructions. 4 stanzas, and you need to submit a video of yourself singing your personal composition. Remember that the song should be about the 3 core components of DAP. And the last activity for this lesson is this one, activity 3. Explain briefly the implications of the principles in planning developmentally appropriate curriculum. So in the first column, you will be seeing here the 12 DAP principles that I have discussed in this lesson video. And then the second column on the right part, this part here, will be your own explanation. So when you say own explanation, it has to come from your own understanding based on this lesson video and perhaps based on your reading activities. So for the explanation, you have to consider these two. First is, what do these principles mean in terms of planning your developmentally appropriate curriculum? And second, how are these principles applied in planning developmentally appropriate curriculum for young learners? So for each DAP principle, you need to consider these two questions to help you think on what you're going to write for your explanation for every DAP principle. And of course, let's go to the rubric, because I prepared a rubric here so that I can objectively rate your songwriting and presentation output. It's important for you to study first the rubric before doing the activity so that you will be guided well on what are expected of you to do. For criteria, we have your lyrics, creativity, tempo, and melody, and then the organization, props or costume, and then mastery of song. And then the points will be 5, 4, 3, 2. And then kindly just read the specifics of this rubric. And if you have questions, you are always welcome to post these in our Q&A section in our Facebook group so that I can entertain them and provide answers. And this will be also the rubric for the explanation. So kindly read these. This is how you will be rated in your explanation. All right, and these are the references. So that's it for Module 1 with only one lesson. If you have questions, feel free to post them in our Q&A section in our Facebook group. I hope that you have learned something from this lesson. Have a nice day, teachers. See you in our next lesson video. Goodbye.